Okay, let's unpack this. For what, over 3 decades now? Final Fantasy has just been this massive outpouring of worlds, stories, characters. I mean, entire sagas.
It really is. Countless experiences, and each one feels so complete on its own. Yeah, a saga is the right word. The scale is just, wow.
Absolutely. And you immediately hit this wall, right? How do you even start making sense of all that lore? Is there like one giant timeline connecting Final Fantasy I to, I don't know, X6?
That's the big question. The sheer volume is, well, staggering. It's less like mapping a country and more like trying to map a whole universe or maybe multiple universes.
Right. It doesn't feel like one single story. It's more like this sprawling, glittering tapestry woven across different dimensions, maybe.
That's a great way to put it, and that's exactly what we're going to try and tackle for you today. We've got this stack of source material, including this really insightful report called the Chronos Crystal, a comprehensive timeline of Final Fantasy lore across media. And we're using that to help navigate this, well, this life stream of stories, as they put it, help you understand how it all fits together. Or doesn't.
So the goal here isn't just to list games. We're trying to pull out the really important bits, understand the structure, you said, universes, plural, and that feels right.
Definitely plural.
Yeah.
And highlight the fascinating details, those surprising links, and, the deliberate choices that make this whole thing so enduring. Why do people love this world building so much?
And it's important, like the sources stress, to know what we're even looking at. It's not just the games.
Not at all. This report pulls from everything: films, novels, anime, manga, basically anything that expands on a game's world.
But it calls out specific things as being crucial, right? Like those Ultimania guidebooks from
No,
Japan.
absolutely critical. The sources basically say you cannot fully grasp the lore without them. They're not just walkthroughs. They call them indispensable compendiums of canonical lore. That's pretty strong language.
Wow, okay. So this points to that idea they mentioned, polymorphic content, meaning the story isn't just in the game, it's spread across all these different forms.
Exactly. That's the strategy. The lore lives and breathes in many places.
All right, so let's start with the absolute basics, the core characteristic that defines Final Fantasy according to these sources.
Fundamentally, it's an anthology series. That's the starting point. Most of the numbered games, your FFVA, FFV8s, FFX, FFX, FFXD, FFX6, they happen in completely distinct worlds.
Meaning different planets, different histories, different magic systems, different gods.
Pretty much everything. Unique cosmologies, unique timelines, unique characters. They don't share a setting, generally speaking.
Okay, and you might think that feels disconnected, but the sources argue this is actually a strength. Why?
Well, it keeps the series incredibly fresh. You can jump into the latest game, say Final Fantasy X16, and you don't need to know anything about Cloud Strife or the Warriors of Light from FFI.
Right, no homework required.
Exactly. It lowers the barrier to entry for new players.
Yeah.
Which is huge for a series this old. And it prevents, narrative fatigue. You don't have 40 years of continuity weighing down every new story.
Plus, it gives the developers freedom, right? They can go from high fantasy in 9X to sci-fi in 7th or 8th, or deep political drama in 12.
Precisely. That creative freedom lets them explore totally different themes, art styles, gameplay. It's key to its longevity. Each numbered entry can be a whole new experience.
Okay, that makes total sense. Keeps it vibrant. But, and this is where my head starts spinning, the sources say it's not just an anthology. There are connections. There are recurring things, even linked universes. How does that work? How can it be both separate and connected?
Yeah, that's where the nuance comes in. And it leads straight into that polymorphic content idea we mentioned. Especially after FFVI blew up globally, Square Enix really leaned into expanding individual game worlds beyond just the game itself.
So the story spills out of the console.
Right. The world of, say, FFVII isn't just what you see in the original game. It's strategically grown through multiple media types.
What kinds of media are we talking about?
Well, the sources list quite a few. Feature films are a big one. Think Advent Children for FFVI or like Kingsglaive for FFXV.
Oh, okay.
Novels, too, like On the Way to a Smile bridging FFVII in its movie, or Episode 0 giving backstory for FFXC. Animated series like Brotherhood for FFXV, manga adaptations, and again, those crucial supplementary books.
So the bottom line for you, the listener, wanting to understand the full story of a game like 7 or 13th or Letting See, is you can't just play the game.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
The sources call it needing a multi-source methodology. You often have to look at these other pieces for vital context, character motivations, sometimes even major plot points.
Which brings us back to those Ultimania guides. You said they're indispensable compendiums. What's in them that makes them so important?
They're packed. Seriously. You get extensive developer interviews like, what was the intention behind this character arc or this confusing plot point? Sometimes they talk about cut content.
Ah, okay. Behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, but more than that. Incredibly detailed timelines for that specific game's world. Full character biographies, sometimes with details barely hinted at in the game. Exhaustive world-building notes like, how does this society actually work?
And they clarify confusing bits.
Definitely. They often step in to clear up ambiguous plot points or endings, giving what's generally considered the definitive canon interpretation for that world, at least at the time of publication. They offer that deeper understanding the sources mention.
Can you give a concrete example? The report mentioned one for FFVII.
Right, the FFVI Ultimania Omega. It apparently includes stuff from early development like Tiva's diary entries. Imagine reading her inner thoughts during the game. Huge insight into her relationship with Cloud. And it also has Shinra's official, totally fake story about what happened at Nibelheim, showing how they manipulated information. That's not in the game, but it's presented as canonical fact in the guide.
So even understanding one event, Nibelheim, needs this extra layer from a book published years later that really drives home the point about multiple sources.
It absolutely does. And it highlights another concept the material brings up, retroactive weaving. Meaning later releases prequels like Crisis Core, interquels like those FFVII novels, or even these Ultimania guides are often designed specifically to fill gaps in the original story or make you rethink events you thought you understood.
So they don't just add more story, they can change how you see the original story.
Exactly. Crisis Core completely changes how you understand Cloud's whole identity crisis by showing you Zack's story. Ultimania guides clarify things that were maybe intentionally vague before. It means the timeline of lore for any FF world isn't fixed when the credits roll. It's constantly evolving, new details get added, things get reinterpreted. It's a living history, not a dead one.
Okay, that's a crucial framework. So with that in mind, let's dive into some of these specific connected universes, the material details. First up, Ivalice, described as one of the most richly detailed and thematically consistent settings.
Ivalice. Yeah, it's a fan favorite for a reason. It's the world of Final Fantasy Tactics, Final Fantasy XII, Vagrant Story, and its lore even got pulled into Final Fantasy XIV through the Return to Ivalice raid series.
What makes it stand out? What's the Ivalice flavor?
According to the sources, it's known for really complex politics. Like empires clashing, kingdoms rising and falling, lots of intrigue. It's got a whole bunch of different races living together. Humes, Banga, Viera, Mughals.
They're not just humans.
Exactly. And there's this blend of pervasive magic alongside remnants of super advanced ancient technology. Airships powered by magicite, that kind of thing. Plus, its history goes back millennia. Layers upon layers of myth. Forgotten gods, fallen civilizations.
That sounds incredibly dense. And the material mentions a specific person's influence, Yasumi Matsuno.
Yeah, his vision is seen as key. It gives the Ivalice games, even though they're different genres, this really distinctive kind of mature tone. The stories dig into things like class struggle, how power corrupts, lots of moral ambiguity. Characters aren't just good or evil. And it often takes a pretty critical look at organized religion and how it shapes history. That consistent authorial voice really ties the Ivalice games together thematically.
So even though Tactics is turn-based strategy and 12 is more action RPG, they share that DNA. What about the timeline? How do they fit together?
Okay, the main chronology puts Final Fantasy XII happening before Final Fantasy Tactics. Centuries before, actually.
Right.
Vagrant Story is in the same world, but its exact placement is a bit fuzzy, though it definitely shares the vibe and lore connections. The Tactics Advanced games are kind of side stories. FFTA is about the real world getting magically transformed into Ivalice, while FFTA 2 is actually set in Ivalice, just exploring a different region.
Gotcha. So 12 is the past, Tactics is the later era. Now, the material really emphasizes this theme running through Ivalice, historical revisionism, uncovering hidden truths. How does that play out?
It's baked into the structure. Final Fantasy Tactics is literally framed as a historian, Al-Aslam Darai, uncovering the real story of the Lion War, centuries after it happened.
Ah, so the official history is wrong.
Exactly. He finds out the dominant church, the Church of Globados, suppressed the truth and rewrote history to fit their narrative about their founder, Saint Ajora. So the game you're playing is the hidden history.
That's clever. And in FFX Prior,
you discover these ancient beings, the Ocuria, who've been secretly manipulating Ivalice's history for like eons, pulling the strings behind kings and empires. So again, the official history is just a facade controlled by hidden powers.
Wow. So this theme of don't trust the official story runs deep across different Ivalice games. How does that affect you, the listener, engaging with the lore?
It encourages you to be critical.
Right.
The games themselves are telling you to question what you're told, to look beneath the surface. By playing, you're kind of doing what Alazlam or Ash are doing, peeling back layers of propaganda, uncovering forgotten truths. It makes understanding the lore feel like part of the game's conflict.
Yeah, that adds a really cool interactive layer. Can we briefly touch on some key historical periods just to get a sense of Ivalice's scope?
Sure. You've got the really ancient times, like over 2,000 years before tactics. That's when you hear about things like the Acuria, the Espers, maybe early Kiltia religion. Then comes the age of Saint Ajora, maybe 1,200 years before tactics, which marks the rise of that powerful Glebados church.
Okay, then fast forward to Final Fantasy XII's era.
Right, the Arcadian-Dalmascan War era. That's Ash fighting Arcadia, Vayne Solidor, Dr. Cid. The whole conflict with the Acuria and Venat trying to break free from their control. It's called the end of the Age of Stones, the era of Acuria dominance.
And then even later is Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah, centuries after 12. That's the Lion War era. Follows a big war, lots of political backstabbing between nobles like Gul'dan and Larg, manipulated by these demonic beings called Lucavi using the Zodiac Stones.
Yeah.
That's where Ramza and Delita's story unfolds.
And you mentioned Vagrant's story and the advanced games fitting there, too.
Right, Vagrant's story has its own incident in Liamond. FFTA2 is set in Jilland, post-miasma, it seems, sometime after 12 probably. And FFTA is its own magical transformation event, so you see these distinct periods building on each other.
So summing up Ivalice's recurring themes, magic and ancient tech living side by side.
Check. Airships and magicite, constant political intrigue, war, class issues,
Yep.
manipulative religious or ancient powers pulling strings,
Definitely.
deep history and myths, like the Zodiac Brave story affecting the present,
Seems central.
diverse races with their own cultures and conflicts, Humes, Bwanga, Vieira, etc.
Got it.
And that constant struggle between fate or destiny, often imposed by others, and individual free will.
Sounds like Idolice in a nutshell. A very complex, layered nutshell.
It's a world that rewards digging deep.
Okay, from the political depths of Ivalice, let's shift to what the material calls arguably the most extensively developed single world, the Final Fantasy VII universe.
Ah, yes. FFVI. This one's a behemoth. Its lore spans millennia, not just the game's time frame. It all orbits around Jenova, the Lifestream, Shinra, and of course Cloud, Sephiroth, Aerith, and the gang. The original game, the whole compilation of FFVI that followed, and now the remake project. It's massive.
Let's break down those core concepts the sources say are crucial. First, the planet itself, Gaia.
Right. The planet isn't just inert rock. It's presented as sentient, alive. It has the life stream flowing within it. That's the spiritual energy, the collective consciousness of everything that lives and dies. Mako energy is just raw life stream.
Okay. And Jenova, the main antagonist.
Pretty much the ultimate source of trouble. Described as the calamity from the skies, an alien life form that crashed onto the planet thousands of years ago. Its key trait is cellular mimicry, and it has this corrupting influence. Sephiroth is dangerous because of Jenova.
Got it. The Cetra, or Ancients.
They were the original inhabitants, deeply connected to the planet in the life stream. Jenova nearly wiped them out. Aerith is one of the last descendants, which is why she's so important.
And Shinra Electric Power Company, the guys in charge.
The mega corporation running the world. They got powerful by figuring out how to suck Mako energy, the life stream, out of the planet to power everything. Basically draining the planet dry. They maintain control with their army and soldier.
Soldier being.
Shinra's elite warriors. They're infused with Mako, and critically, Jenova cells to make them super strong. Sephiroth was the best. Zack Fair was first class. Cloud thinks he was, but that's complicated. Part of his whole identity issue.
Right, right. And finally, the weapons.
Huge biomechanical monsters the planet creates as a last resort defense system when it's seriously threatened, like by Jenova or Meteor.
Okay, so sentient planet, alien threat, ancient race, exploitative corporation, enhanced soldiers, planetary defense monsters. Got it. The material uses the Nibelheim incident as a case study for how layered this all gets.
Oh yeah. Nibelheim, where Sephiroth finds out about his origins and snaps, is shown through so many conflicting lenses.
How so?
First, in the original game, you see it through Cloud's memory, which is totally messed up by trauma and, well, Jenova cells.
Okay.
Then you get Tifa's perspective, also colored by her trauma. Then, Crisis Core gives you Zack's viewpoint. He was actually there, So that's considered the true version in the original timeline.
So multiple character viewpoints
Cool.
and Shinra's version.
Yep, the Ultimedia guides mention Shinra's complete cover-up. They literally rebuilt the town, replaced the people, and put out a fake story to hide the truth about Sephiroth and their experiments. There was even an anime, Last Order, that showed it differently, though its canon status is shaky now.
So the complexity isn't just for show, it's tied directly into Cloud's identity crisis.
Absolutely. His memory problems, thinking he's Zack, it's all linked to the Mako poisoning, the Genova cells Hojo experimented on him with, and the sheer trauma of Nibelheim and seeing Zack die. He unconsciously patched his broken psyche with Zack's persona, and Shinra burying the truth just made it all muddier.
And the sources make this cool connection that our journey as players, trying to piece together the real story from all these conflicting sources and games, mirrors Cloud's internal journey to find his true self.
Exactly. It makes you engage with the themes of memory, identity, and truth on a meta level. You're doing the work alongside Cloud.
Okay, let's trace that original timeline pre-remake based on the overview, starting way back.
Ancient past, roughly 2,000 years before FFVI, Genova arrives. Big crisis. The Centra managed to defeat and seal it away, but it cost them dearly.
Then, the decades leading up to the game, lots happens here.
Yeah, this is crucial setup. Shinra rises from weapons maker to energy giant via Moko reactors. Professor Gas finds Genova, mistakenly thinks it's a Cetra huge error, starts the Genova project. Hojo and Lucretia do unethical experiments. Sephiroth is born from this. Vincent tries to stop Hojo experimenting on Lucretia, gets experimented on himself, becomes chaos, gets sealed away. Gast realizes his mistake, flees with Ifalna, the real Cetra. Aerith is born. Hojo captures them. Ifalna dies, helping Aerith escape. Elmira adopts Aerith in Midgar. Phew. Lots of tragedy laying the groundwork.
Okay. More recently, the first Soldier game, 18 years before 7.
Right, that explores the early brutal days of the Soldier program. Apparently, Ever Crisis plans to add more story to this period, too.
It overlaps with Crisis Core, shows younger Reno and Sing, Cloud as a grunt, and even Rufus Shinra secretly backing Avalanche.
Leading into Crisis Core reunion 7 years up to your era. Zack Fair's story. His rise in Soldier, the Wutai War, the real Nibelheim incident showing Sephiroth's breakdown. Introduces Genesis and Angel from Project G. Zack meets Cloud, meets Aerith, gets the Buster Sword. Then years of Hojo experimenting on him, and a catatonic Cloud after Nibelheim. Zack's final stand protecting Cloud outside Midgar, his death, is the trigger for Cloud adopting his persona.
And that leads directly into the original Final Fantasy VII Year Zero.
Cloud arrives in Midgar, thinks he's ex-soldier, joins Barrett's Avalanche, meets Tifa again, fight against Shinra. Sephiroth resurfaces from the livestream, summons Meteor. Aerith tries to stop him with Holy, gets tragically killed. Cloud confronts his identity in the livestream with Kifa's help. Party defeats Shinra, defeats Sephiroth. Holy and the livestream stop Meteor. Done. Well, plus the Ultimedia details adding flavor.
After the game, those novellas, On the Way to a Smile, 2 years after.
Yeah, they bridge the gap to Advent Children, show characters dealing with the aftermath, the geostigma plague spreading. Denzel's story comes from here.
Then the movie Advent Children Complete, 2 years after 7.
Direct sequel. Cloud struggling with guilt and geostigma. Sephiroth's remnants, Kadaj, Laz, Yazoo try to resurrect him. Cloud gets pulled back in. Sephiroth comes back briefly, gets beaten again. Livestream Rain cures geostigma. The complete version adds important scenes. And yeah, Last Order got kind of quietly dropped from the official list around the remake era. Canon shifts.
The novel The Kids Are Riot fits in here too.
Yeah, concurrent with the movie. Gives a street-level view of Edge City, new characters, shows the Turks are still around.
Dirge of Cerberus, 3 years after 7.
Vincent's game. He fights Deep Ground, this secret Shinra experiment army led by the Tzits. They want to awaken Omega Weapon. Turns out Hojo uploaded his mind and possesses their leader, Vice. Vincent uses his chaos power to win. Secret ending shows Genesis from Crisis Core taking Vice's body to Crisis Core Ultimania, confirm that connection.
And way, way later, 500 years after.
The epilogue scene. Old Man Red their Thirth looking over a green-heeled Midgar. Shows the planet eventually recovers. It's in the original game ending and Advent Children.
Okay, so that's the sprawling original timeline built over years. But now, the remake project. The sources say it's not just a retelling. It showed significant deviations almost immediately.
This is where it gets wild. Multiverse time. Remake isn't just better graphics, it's actively changing the plot, introducing things that mess with the original destiny.
Like the whispers, the floaty ghost things.
Exactly. Arbiters of fate. They only exist in Remake. They physically intervene whenever the story starts going off the rails from the original FFVII plot. They try to force things back onto the predetermined path.
So defeating them at the end of Remake was the characters literally choosing to break from fate.
That's exactly how it's presented. They're choosing a new, unknown future. This isn't the story you remember.
And the biggest immediate consequence of that is Zack Fair.
Huge. The ending of Remake shows him surviving his last stand, directly contradicts Crisis Core where he definitely died. Rebirth, the second game, dives headfirst into these alternate Zack worlds where he lived.
And that weird detail about Stamp the dog.
Yeah. KT's confirmed different stamp designs mean different timelines. It's a subtle visual cue that reality is fractured. Very nerdy, very cool detail showing intention.
Aerith also seems different, like she knows things.
She seems to have some awareness of the original timeline. Her dialogue hints at future events, or things she shouldn't know yet in this timeline, like that line about the sky changing from steel sky to torn sky, linking to Rebirth's theme of broken realities. It's subtle but unsettling.
Suggests she knows the original tragic path. And Sephiroth. He seems different too, more aware.
Way more aware. Remake Sephiroth seems to know about the original timeline, his defeat. He's actively manipulating things across timelines and interacting with Cloud beyond time. He's not just trying to summon Meteor. He seems to be trying to rewrite his own destiny, escape his original failure.
So he goes from tragic villain to multiversal entity fighting the script itself.
That's how the material frames it. It's a massive shift. He's battling fate alongside the heroes, but for his own ends.
What does this multiverse approach do to the FFVII story? What are the implications?
It turns it into this really complex meta-narrative. It's exploring fate, choice, canon itself. The remake Ultimania Plus even mentions a universe of death, hinting these alternate timelines might be unstable or dangerous. It lets them bring back characters like Zack, explore what-ifs, but the Dying Worlds idea suggests it's not all happy endings. It adds peril to defying fate.
And finally, Final Fantasy VII, Ever Crisis fits in how?
It's a mobile game doing episodic retellings of the entire original compilation. But critically, it's also adding new story, like young Sephiroth 15 years before the game. Nomura called it an alternate remake. So it's both a lore archive and a source of new, potentially alternate canon.
Man, the FFVII lore was already dense. Now it's dynamically changing and branching. A living timeline indeed.
Okay, moving to another type of interconnected universe, Fabula Nova Crystallis, or FNC. This was a really ambitious, unique idea. Not direct sequels, but multiple games, the FFX City Side trilogy, Type A and XV, all drawing from a common foundational mythos.
So, same gods and rules, but different worlds and stories.
Pretty much. Kazushige Nojima came up with this core cosmology, this creation myth, and then different teams used that framework for their games.
What are the key bits of that shared mythos?
There's a specific god hierarchy. Bunavel's the creator, his servants Pulse and Linzai, who shaped the mortal world, and then Etro, goddess of death, tied to the unseen realm, human hearts, chaos.
And the Falsi are central.
Yeah, these are super powerful beings made by the gods. They look different in each game. Huge machines in Third Thief, more like crystals or people in Type Boot. Their main job in the story is usually choosing humans to become lazy.
Lacy being.
Humans chosen by a Falsi. They get a magical brand, powers, and a focus.
A focus, like a mission.
Exactly. A divinely ordered task. Succeed, and you turn into crystal, maybe forever. Fail or despair, and you become a monster called a Seath. High stakes.
And the universe has this structure.
Often a split between the mortal world and an afterlife or unseen realm, like Valhalla in 13.2. Etra's involved with souls moving between them.
And crystals are obviously key.
Yeah, but more than just power-ups. They're tied into the gods, the Felsi, the Losi's fate. Often they are the Falsi or conduits of divine power.
So, detailed framework. But the sources say it was applied with a lot of flexibility across the games.
That's the defining thing about FNC, and maybe its biggest hurdle. FFX Slayo's trilogy uses the terms constantly. Falsi actions drive the plot directly. Type 0 uses the same words, but in a super dark, gritty war story, with different rules for Lassie. FFX, well, it started as Versus 13th in FNC, but the final game barely uses the terms. The connections are more thematic, much more subtle.
Why so different?
Lots of reasons, the material suggests. Different teams working at the same time. Creative visions changing over very long development cycles especially. Versus 13th becoming XV. Different story goals for each game. Practical stuff, like marketing Type 0 was even renamed from AG to 13th, partly to separate it from 13th, despite the shared roots.
So it was less about one big story, more a flexible toolkit of ideas.
Pretty much. Gave freedom, but sometimes felt disconnected or ambiguous to players. thematic links over strict narrative ones.
Okay, let's quickly run through the games to see how they use this mythos differently. Final Fantasy XIII, 2009.
Setting: artificial world Cocoon, floating above Grand Pulse. Characters branded Pulse. Their focus seems to be destroy Cocoon. They fight against that fate. Episode 0 novel adds backstory. Very direct use of Felsi and Lucy driving the plot.
FX TheDeepDive 2 to 11.
3 years later. Lightnings in Valhalla protecting Etro. Sarah and Noel time travel to fix paradoxes. Villain Caius Ballad wants to unleash chaos to end the painful rebirth cycle of his charge, Yell. Heavy focus on Etro, chaos, paradoxes. And Ultimania hinted at a cut link to Type Zero's world here.
Lightning Returns, 2013.
500 years later. World's ending. Lightning is the savior for Boonavels, guiding souls to a new world. Concludes the trilogy, deals directly with the creator god.
FF Type 0, 2011.
World of Orients, 4 nations with crystals. Class 0 defends Rubrum from Militese invasion. Very dark, war focus, brutal cycle of history forced by Falsi and Lissy have different roles fates. Mobile games like Agito explored this world too. Uses FNC terms but feels very distinct.
And FFXV, 2016. The former versus the 13.
Prince Noctis's road trip to reclaim his kingdom in Crystal. Themes of prophecy, divine power, king's astrals, star scourge plague, complex villain Ardyn with ancient ties. Explicit FNC terms are minimal, but themes resonate. Chosen king, burden, destiny. Heavily reliant on supplementary media, Kingsglaive film, Brotherhood anime, episode Ardyn anime for the full picture.
So across these very different games, you see Falsi, Lessie, Focus, Crystals. But each team really ran with those concepts in their own direction.
Exactly. A network of shared ideas, not a shared history.
All right, next up, the Crystal Chronicles series. The material calls this a distinct niche, mostly on Nintendo platforms.
Yeah, Crystal Chronicles has its own vibe. Unique art style, often chibi characters. Big focus initially on co-op gameplay. Remember plugging GBAs into the GameCube?
Oh, yeah.
Core themes are often about community, rebuilding, shared journeys, playing together.
What's the core lore here? What defines this world?
The big threat is the miasma. It's this deadly poisonous fog covering most of the world. Settlements survive only because they have big crystals creating protective barriers.
But the barriers need recharging.
Right, annually. They need myrrh, this magical liquid found on myrrh trees, which only grow out in the dangerous miasma-filled dungeons.
So the caravans.
Player characters form caravans. Their job is to make the dangerous trip each year to collect myrrh drops to keep their town's crystal barrier going. Very survival-focused premise in the first game.
And the 4 races.
You've got Clavets, human-like, Lilties, stout warriors, Ukes, masked mages, and Selkies, agile rogues. Their roles and power dynamics actually change across the games, which is interesting. The miasma itself started 1,000 years before the first game, when the Great Crystal was shattered by a meteorite carrying something called the meteor parasite, which generates the poison.
So the timeline of the series tracks the world dealing with this miasma crisis.
Pretty much. It shows evolution over millennia. Ring of Fates on DS is set thousands of years before the miasma, in a golden age, showing the Great Crystal and how it shattered.
Then the original FFCC on GameCube, 1,000 years after the miasma appeared.
Yep, that's the main miasma-era game. Caravans collecting myrrh. Story ends with defeating the meteor parasite, clearing the miasma.
Echoes of Time.
Also said during the miasma era, placement's a bit debated. After Ring of Fates, maybe around the time of the original game, deals with a crystal shard hero and a crystal illness.
And those 2 WiiWare games.
My Life as a King is a direct sequel to the original FFCC. Set after the miasma is gone, you're rebuilding a kingdom. My Life as a Dark Lord is a sequel to King, but you play the villain's daughter building a tower to fight adventurers. Fun twist.
And finally, the Crystal Bearers on Wii.
This jumps way ahead 1,000 years after the miasma cleared, so a millennium after the original game. Magic is fading, technology's rising, Liltheses are dominant now, Ukes are almost extinct and distrusted. You played Lael, a crystal bearer with powers, caught in a plot involving ancient Uke tech.
So the whole series shows this arc. Ancient magic age, miasma survival, rebuilding, magic fades, tech rises, race dynamics shift. Gives a real sense of history.
Definitely. It builds a cohesive world history across very different game styles. The material even mentions they thought about dropping the Final Fantasy name for it. Originally, it felt so distinct.
So we've hit the big interconnected sagas. But the material also mentions some mainline games got direct sequels outside these big compilations, Echoes of Other Worlds.
Right, more isolated cases. The big one is Final Fantasy X.
Talk us through the original FFX 2001.
World of Spyra, trapped in this cycle of destruction by a giant monster called Sin. The Yvonne religion teaches summoners must go on a pilgrimage to get the final eon to beat sin, bringing temporary calm before sin returns. Titus, our hero, is from Dreams Anarchan, gets slung into Spira, joins Summoner Yuna's pilgrimage with her guardians Oron, Waka Lulu, Riku Kamari, Key Lore, Faith, souls powering eons, fireflies, spiritual energy, the unsent lingering spirits. Turns out the Yvonne leader, Yu Yvonne, is Sin, perpetuating the cycle. They break the cycle, defeat Yvonne, Sin vanishes, but so do the eons and Faith, including Titus, who was Dream Faith, ushering in the eternal calm. Ultimania guides add lots of detail.
And the sequel, Final Fantasy X2, 2003.
2 years later, during the eternal calm, no sin, but new problems. Political factions like the Youth League versus New Yvonne. Yuna becomes a sphere hunter with Riku and newcomer Pain, the Gullwings. They look for spheres showing Spira's past, hoping to find Titus. New stuff. Dress spheres for job changing. Ancient weapon Vengugan, tragic backstory of Len and Schwinn. Multiple endings. Titus might come back, depending on what you do. Later stuff like an audio drama and novel exists, but are controversial among fans.
And X2 had a very different feel.
Totally. X was serious, pilgrimage-focused. X2 was way more lighthearted, J-pop influenced, mission-based, lots of costume changes. Seen as reflecting Spira being free, finding a new identity, Yuna especially.
Any other direct sequels mentioned? FFV?
Yep. Final Fantasy IV, The After Years. Started on mobile in 2008, set 17 years after FFIV. Stars Theodore, son of Cecil and Rosa. Old cast returns, new heroes too. Second moon appears. Mysterious girl shatters crystals. Deeper dive into Lunarians, the planet-moon relationship, introduces a cosmic creator entity. Episodic structure.
And even FFV had something early on.
Final Fantasy. Legend of the Crystals, a 1994 OVA anime, set 200 years after FFV. Stars Lyneley, Bart's descendant, protecting crystals from Ross Devil. New Warriors of Light, one of the earliest attempts at a media sequel.
So while anthology is the rule, these direct follow-ups show they do sometimes continue specific world stories, adding more layers to those individual histories.
Absolutely. But we should reiterate, the majority of the numbered games are standalone worlds. That's the core pattern, allowing that constant reinvention.
And the sources point out how storytelling evolved within those standalone games over time, like FFI versus FFVI or XCA, big difference.
Huge difference. Early games often had simpler plots, Warriors of Light versus generic Dark Lord. Later games brought in complex politics, morally gray characters, deeper philosophical themes, just way more intricate world building and character arcs.
Why the change?
Technology is a big factor. More storage space meant more text, more detailed worlds. Better graphics and cinematics meant richer emotional storytelling. Plus, development teams got more ambitious, and players started expecting more complex narratives. The medium grew up.
Makes sense. Tech enables ambition, audience expectations rise. But even though these worlds are separate, the material stresses these recurring elements provide familiarity. It's not timeline links, but shared DNA.
Exactly.
Yeah.
These recurring motifs don't mean FFEI and FFAX are the same world, but they weave this web of references that feels distinctly Final Fantasy. Character names and archetypes are huge here.
Like Sid, he's everywhere.
Almost every game since FFII. He looks different, acts different, but he's almost always a brilliant scientist, engineer, pilot, usually tied to airships or tech. He's that familiar face you expect to see.
And Biggs and Wedge.
The classic duo, usually minor roles, often soldiers or technicians who meet a clumsy end. Fun little nod that pops up constantly since FFEI. Beyond names, you see archetypes repeated. The knight, the sage, the princess, the anti-hero, the world-destroying villain.
Creatures and summons too, right? That's massive for FF identity.
Totally. Chocobos are the big yellow birds you right there everywhere. Mascot level. Google's the little winged guys with pom-poms. Kupos, also super common, doing odd jobs, sometimes playable.
And summons espers, eidolons, GFs, icons.
A series hallmark since FFIE. You always expect to see Ifrit, fire, Shiva, ice, Ramu, lightning, Leviathan, water, Titan, earth, Odin, instant death, Bahamut, Dragon King. They get reinterpreted each time, but the core identity is there. Instantly recognizable power.
Gameplay mechanics and terms also carry over.
Things like limit breaks or similar special moves. Spell names are incredibly consistent. Fire, Fira, Faraga, Cure, Cura, Curaga, Life, Isuna, Holy, Flare, Meteor, Ultima. You know these spells across the franchise. Weapon names too, Excalibur, Masamune pop up again and again.
And common story themes and plot structures.
Loads. A diverse group uniting against overwhelming evil. Classic. Rebellion against a corrupt empire or church. Very common. Environmental themes, danger of exploiting the planet, big in 7, but elsewhere too, like 16th. Personal struggle, sacrifice, friendship, love, often taking center stage. The false villain twits, where the first bad guy isn't the real bad guy, happens a lot. Amnesia, mistaken identity, hero tempted by darkness, all recurring plot devices.
So all these recurring things, Sid, chocobos, Ifrit, cure spells, rebellion themes, they don't make one timeline, but they weave that complex web of intertextual references and shared symbolism.
Exactly. They're the threads binding the multiverse.
Yeah.
They ensure that when you start a new FF game, even in a totally new world, it feels like Final Fantasy. It's that balance of novelty and familiarity that's kept the series going. Which leads us to a really crucial point the material emphasizes. Canon in Final Fantasy. It's fluid, it evolves, it's not set in stone the day a game releases.
And remakes and remasters are a huge part of that fluidity.
Oh, absolutely. Final Fantasy VII Remake is Exhibit A. Like we talked about, it's not just polishing graphics, it's actively changing plot points, character arcs, the timeline itself of the multiverse stuff.
Right, the Whispers trying to enforce the original story, Zack surviving.
Exactly. Defeating the Whispers is a conscious break from the original fate. Zack living is a massive departure. The remake becomes this meta-commentary on destiny, remaking stories, choice.
It's like the remake is about remaking things.
Pretty much. Even less drastic remasters can shift understanding. Tactics. War of the Lions had a new translation that clarified a lot of the original's ambiguity. FF Cal Hour. Zodiac Age brought the international job system worldwide, refining how people experienced that world's systems.
And the Ultimania guides come back in here again as shapers of canon.
Hugely important for depth. They give those detailed timelines, character backstories not fully in the game, developer insights on intent, clarifications. They're often treated as the closest thing to official word.
Like the Nibelheim fabrication details, or Tifa's diary, or confirming Genesis's fate after Dirge of Cerberus.
Yeah, those details add canonical layers. But, the material wisely points out, even Ultimania info isn't totally immune. A new game or remake could still contradict or supersede it later. Nothing's truly permanent.
Other media contribute too from that polymorphic strategy.
Novels like On the Way to a Smile fill gaps. FFX33 Episode 0 gives vital backstory. Brotherhood and King's Glaze are almost required viewing for FFXV. They all add pieces.
But the sources acknowledge fan debates about whether every side story is truly canon, especially if later games ignore or contradict them.
For sure. And he gives that example of Last Order for FFVII, initially official compilation material, then quietly dropped when remake started. Status can definitely change.
All this leads to what the material calls the living timeline concept.
Yeah, because of all this revision, expansion, reinterpretation. The lore isn't static, it's alive. It grows, it changes. Any timeline you draw is just a snapshot based on current info, always subject to future updates. The franchise history shows they will revisit and build on the past, sometimes in ways you don't expect.
It's like the lore itself is as unpredictable as fate in some of these games.
That's a perfect way to put it.
So mapping Final Fantasy's lore. It's definitely a journey. The big takeaway is that it starts as an anthology. Most numbered games. Separate universes. And that's been key to its creativity and longevity. Keeps things fresh, lets new players in.
But it's not just separate stories. We've got these big interconnected clusters like Ivali's with its deep history and politics, the massive FFVI saga now exploding into a multiverse, the unique Fabula Nova Crystallis framework linking worlds by myth, and Crystal Chronicles telling a multi-generational story.
And knitting it all together, even the standalone games, are those recurring threads, Sid always showing up, Chocobos and Moogles being constants, Ifri and Shiva ready to be summoned, familiar spells, and those core themes of crystals, rebellion, friendship, environmentalism. That's the FF identity.
They're the familiar anchors in every new world. They create that shared symbolism, even without a shared timeline. It's a balance of new and old.
And then crucially, this lore isn't static. It's a living thing, constantly being added to, refined, sometimes radically changed by new games, remakes like FFVIIs, and those vital supplementary sources like the Ultimania guides.
So yeah, the timeline of all Final Fantasy lore isn't one straight line. It's that complex, interwoven tapestry metaphor again. Individual epics, linked sagas, shared myths, all tied by recurring symbols and all evolving. Hopefully this deep dive gives you a map, a way to navigate whether you're exploring one game or trying to connect the dots across the whole multiverse. You can see the structure, the themes, how it keeps changing.
And seeing how things like the Remake Project are actively changing the past, how canon is so fluid, it leaves us with a pretty provocative thought, doesn't it? In a saga that's always revisiting and rewriting itself. Can any story ever truly be final? How does knowing the lore is always in flux change how we think about it, or maybe even how we think about long-running stories in general? It's something to chew on.